picture this. You are a commercial truck driver, right? And well, a few years ago, you had a DOT drug or alcohol violation.
Oh, yeah. A really stressful time.
Incredibly stressful, but you did everything right. You owned the mistake. You went through the whole process. You finished the SAP evaluation.
Right, the substance abuse professional evaluation.
Exactly. You did the education, you passed your return to duty test, and you diligently showed up for like every single follow-up test over the next couple of years.
Which is a huge commitment.
It is. So now you're sitting across a desk applying for this fantastic new driving position.
Hmm.
The safety manager looks at your file, looks up at you, and asks, who is your SAP and which motor carrier currently holds your follow-up testing records?
Oh, no.
And suddenly your mind just goes completely blank. You stammer something like, I don't remember their name. I think it was last year. I took a bunch of tests for some company in Texas.
Yeah, that is brutal.
Right. Just like that, all your hard work is overshadowed by this massive administrative red flag, and the job just slips right through your fingers.
It's the ultimate nightmare scenario, honestly. And, I mean, it happens every single day.
Really? Every day.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You did all the heavy lifting of rehabilitation. You're safe. You're sober. You are compliant. But because you can't document that journey, the new motor carrier, well, they just see a giant liability sitting in their office.
Well, we're going to make sure that never happens to you. For this deep dive, we're pulling from this incredibly comprehensive guide called Build Your SAP Career File and Make Yourself Easier to Hire.
It's a great resource.
It really is. So our mission today is to extract the exact blueprint for building your own personal DOT SAP career file. We want to figure out how a past violation can become just, one organized chapter of your career instead of a permanent roadblock.
Because the reality is the SAP process, it requires a massive investment. I mean, of your time, your money, your effort.
Right.
And walking into an interview, unable to explain your own regulatory history, it basically makes the hiring process impossibly difficult for that safety manager.
They're just making a business decision.
Right, exactly. Disorganization just creates a massive amount of investigative work for them, and they don't have the time for it.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the very first hurdle we need to clear is a pretty major assumption. A lot of drivers listening right now might be thinking, wait a minute, doesn't the government keep track of all this for me? Like, doesn't the internet just handle it?
Yeah, that assumption, that is probably the single biggest trap drivers fall into. We can call it the clearinghouse myth.
The clearinghouse myth. I like that.
Right, because so many drivers believe that the FMCSA clearinghouse, the federal database, contains every single document and detail associated with their SAP history.
I mean, it is a massive federal tracking system, so it's kind of easy to see why someone would just assume it holds the whole paper trail.
It sounds like it should, right? But the mechanics of the system are actually much more limited.
How so?
Well, the clearinghouse is the official database, sure. But it only tracks major milestones. Like, it'll show your SAP assessment date. It shows your return to duty eligibility, your negative return to duty test result, and eventually the successful completion of your follow-up testing plan.
But only once everything is completely finished.
Exactly. The critical gap here is that it does not contain the actual underlying documents. And most importantly, the specific granular follow-up testing plan. That is never stored in the clearinghouse.
Wait, so the actual schedule, like the specific number of tests you have to take over, however many months, that's just absent from the federal database?
Totally absent. The federal government tracks the status, but your employer executes the plan.
Oh, I see.
So if you change employers before you finish that follow-up plan, your new employer can't just log into the clearinghouse, click a button, and download your testing requirements.
Because it's just not there.
Right. Federal regulations say the new employer legally must obtain that official testing plan directly from your previous employer. They have to maintain that chain of custody.
Okay, the source text actually highlights a driver named Eric who learned this the hard way.
Ah, yes, Eric.
Yeah, so Eric applies to a new motor carrier. He looks at his clearinghouse status on his phone, sees the green text that says, not prohibited, and he just confidently tells the new safety manager, hey, you don't need to call my old employer. Everything you need is right there.
And that is exactly the trap. Not prohibited simply means he is legally allowed to drive a commercial vehicle at that exact moment.
Right.
It doesn't mean his past requirements are just erased or fully completed. Because his follow-up plan wasn't finished, the new motor carrier is legally barred from letting him drive until they get the official plan from his old employer.
So Eric's assumption basically just brought his hiring process to a dead stop.
A grinding halt.
Yeah. listening to this, it feels almost exactly like relying entirely on a Carfax report when you're buying a used truck.
Oh, that's a good way to look at it.
Right. Like the Carfax is a great starting point. It tells you if the truck was in a major wreck or if it has a salvage title and isn't legally clear to drive. But a smart buyer, or, well, a smart safety manager in this case, still wants to see the actual physical maintenance receipts in the glove box, to know exactly what engine work was done and by who.
What's fascinating here is that the Carfax analogy captures the dynamic perfectly.
Yeah.
Your personal organization doesn't replace the need for federal compliance.
Right. The safety manager still has to do their job.
Exactly. They still do their official regulatory checks. But having that glove box full of organized receipts gives the new motor carrier a clear roadmap. You're handing them the exact names and numbers they need to make their compliance fast and easy.
Okay, so we've established that relying on your old company's HR department or just hoping the federal database has your back is a massive gamble.
A huge gamble.
Which means the responsibility falls entirely on you. So if a driver is listening and wants to start building this file today, what exactly are they putting in this folder?
Good question.
The source material lists 8 specific categories, but rather than just reading a dry checklist, let's break this down into, 3 logical phases.
I like that.
Phase 1 would be, well, your origin story.
Right. The origin story is everything that basically initiated the process. You need to log your clearinghouse records, specifically keeping track of the dates your status changed.
Okay, that makes sense.
You also need your SAP information. That means the contact info for your substance abuse professional, the dates of your evaluations, and any reports they are legally allowed to give you.
And what about the actual treatment?
Crucial. You need your education and treatment documentation. Counselors retire,
Right.
treatment centers close down. You must have your own copies of your completion certificates with the dates and course titles on them.
Okay, so once you have that origin story, the safety manager is going to want proof of action, right? Which brings us to phase 2.
Right. The proof.
This is your return to duty documentation and your ongoing testing log. But the text drops some pretty heavy acronyms here that we should probably clarify. It mentions needing the contact info for the MRO and the CTPA.
Yeah, let's define those by what they actually do for the driver.
Right.
So the MRO is the medical review officer. This is a licensed physician who receives the lab results, reviews them, and officially determines if a drug test is positive or negative. They hold the actual medical authority.
Got it. And the CTPA.
That stands for a consortium or a third-party administrator. If you work for a massive carrier, they probably manage all their drug testing in-house.
Sure.
But smaller trucking companies, they usually hire an outside agency, the CTPA, to actually manage the testing program. They run the random selection lotteries and hold the physical records. You need their names because they're the ones facilitating the paperwork.
Okay, and you also need a historical record of every follow-up test you've already taken, right? Like the date, the employer, the collection site.
Exactly.
But I want to play devil's advocate for a second. I really want to push back on this entire concept.
Okay, go for it.
Because I'm looking at the DOT regulations referenced in the text, specifically 49 CFR 40.333.
Yep, the employer retention rule.
Right. It explicitly states that employers are legally required to keep SAP reports and follow-up records for 5 years. They have a federal mandate to do this. So why is it on you, the driver, to do their administrative HR paperwork? Isn't that literally their job?
It is entirely their job. The regulation is absolutely clear on that.
So why do I have to do it?
Well, let's look at the reality of the trucking industry through another driver from the text, Marcus.
Okay, Marcus, what happened to him?
So Marcus completed a huge chunk of his follow-up program while working for a small regional trucking company. A few years later, the freight market dips, and that small company goes completely out of business.
Oh, wow.
The doors are locked, phones are disconnected. Marcus goes back to the job market, and his new employer needs his official remaining testing plan to hire him.
And since the old company doesn't exist, there's nobody answering the phone to send the paperwork over.
Precisely. You can't force a bankrupt company to produce official records. But because Marcus took ownership of his own SAP Career File, he wasn't left stranded.
What did he have?
He had the former company's DOT number, the name of their old designated employer representative, and crucially, the contact info for that outside CTPA and the MRO we just talked about.
Ah, so he had a workaround.
Right. He gave the new carrier a starting point to legally track down the official records through those third parties. If he had just relied solely on the DOT regulation that said his employer should keep the records, he'd be completely unhireable.
Wow. Okay, that reframes the whole concept for me. You aren't doing the company's paperwork for them. You're building a firewall to protect your livelihood from, well, their incompetence or just bad luck.
Exactly. It's about protecting yourself.
There's another example in the text, David, who received all his crucial SAP paperwork through a corporate email account.
Oh, David. Yeah, that's a tough one.
He never bothered to download the PDFs to his personal device, right? So when he quit, IT deactivated his email, and his entire regulatory history just evaporated overnight.
It's just gone. Companies merge, email servers get wiped, testing providers change their software systems. If you rely on everyone else to maintain the proof of your rehabilitation, you're putting your career in the hands of people who might not even be in the industry tomorrow.
That is terrifying. But here's where it gets really interesting, though. We just outlined this massive push for hyper-organization, right?
Yeah.
But the source text comes with a glaring warning about Phase 3, the things that must never go in your personal file.
Yes, this is a critical boundary. Your file must never, ever contain your confidential future follow-up testing schedule.
See, looking at this from a driver's perspective, that seems so counterintuitive. Like, if my goal is to be fully organized and proactive, shouldn't I know exactly when my next test is so I can, make sure I'm available?
No, because if you know when the test is no longer unannounced.
Oh, for
The DOT's entire regulatory framework for follow-up testing relies heavily on the element of surprise. Federal rules strictly require SAPs to redact future testing dates before providing any reports to the driver or even the employer.
So it's legally restricted.
Completely. The Department of Transportation specifically mandates that the employee must never be provided with the follow-up testing plan.
The text actually highlights a driver named Michael to show how badly this can go.
Right, Michael.
Yeah, Michael marches into his SAP's office, demands complete transparency, and insists on getting his entire file, including the specific dates he's supposed to be tested over the next 3 years.
And by doing that, Michael isn't just asking for some harmless paperwork. He is effectively asking his SAP to break federal law.
Wow.
If an employee knows their testing schedule, the entire rehabilitation process is compromised. It invalidates the integrity of the unannounced program.
That makes total sense.
You have every right to document your history, sure, but your personal log should only document tests that have already happened in the past. Once you pee in the cup and the test is over, write down the date and the location.
But it never asks, when is my next one?
Never ask your manager or your SAP when the next one is scheduled.
Okay, so we know what goes in the glove box, and we understand the regulatory mechanics of what stays out. But let's talk about the physical reality of this file. Knowing the ingredients is pretty useless if the end result is just a disorganized mess of crumpled papers.
Oh, right. Stained with diesel and coffee just shoved under the passenger seat.
Exactly. So maintenance and presentation have to be just as important as the documents themselves?
They absolutely are. The guide strongly advises maintaining this file in at least 2 secure locations. You need a physical paper folder kept safely at home, not bouncing around in the truck where it can be damaged or, seen by unauthorized people.
And the second location?
A secure electronic folder backed up to a cloud service.
The guide points out this small digital detail that I thought was brilliant. It makes a massive psychological difference to a hiring manager, and that is file naming conventions.
Yes. So important.
We are all guilty of taking a photo of a document on our phones and just letting it save as, like, img4827.pdf.
Right. And if you email a safety manager a zip file full of randomly numbered images, you just look chaotic. If they ask for your education certificate from 3 years ago, you're going to be sitting in their office sweating, opening 20 different attachments just trying to find it.
It's a terrible look. The guide suggests naming them clearly by date and function, like year, month, day, 2026 Euro 1 201 education completion.pdf.
It's perfect.
It's such a simple administrative task, but handing a safety manager a perfectly organized, clearly labeled digital footprint, it immediately signals that you are a meticulous professional. But what if a driver is listening to this and they're nodding along, but they're secretly panicking because they already lost a crucial piece of paperwork? Say they lost a past DOT drug test result from 2 years ago. Are they just permanently locked out of building this file?
Oh, not at all. The guide provides a tremendous sense of relief on this exact issue by pointing to DOT Rule 49 CFR 40.329.
Okay, what does that rule do?
Let's look at the example of Samantha. She knew she took a specific DOT test a few years prior, but she just couldn't find the physical paper anywhere.
Happens to the best of us.
Right. Well, the regulation clearly states that if an employee makes a written request to the medical review officer or the service agent, those entities generally must provide copies of records pertaining to that employee's DOT testing.
And there's a timeline on that, right?
Yep, usually within 10 business days.
That is a powerful tool. You have an actual legal mechanism to request your own records. So don't just give up and accept the missing gap in your timeline. Write the formal request, get the document, and slide it into your file.
Exactly. And once you've built this comprehensive file, the next logical question is retention. Like, how long do you actually keep this thing?
Right, because earlier we discussed that the DOT requires employers to keep these records for 5 years.
True. But the source material pushes back hard against applying that timeline to the driver.
Yeah, the recommendation is to keep the SAP Career File for the entire duration of your commercial driving career, period.
I mean, electronic storage is virtually free today, right?
Mm.
There is no downside to keeping a digital backup forever. You might leave the trucking industry for a decade and decide to come back. Your previous employers might all shut down.
Like Marcus's company.
Exactly. Having absolute continuity of your own lawful records across the entire span of your career is just the ultimate safety net.
Okay, so the file is built, it's properly named, backed up to the cloud, locked away physically. You have your organized glove box full of receipts. Now we reach the most critical moment, the interview.
The big test.
Right. How does a driver actually deploy this tool? Because, well, you want to get hired, but you definitely don't want to terrify the safety manager by dropping a 3-inch binder of drug testing documents onto their desk before they've even offered you a cup of coffee.
Yeah. Strategy is everything in the interview room. You do not hand them every personal confidential document you own.
What do you do instead?
You create what the guide calls a re-employment packet. This is a highly curated selection of documents designed to answer their regulatory questions without overwhelming them. And the anchor of this packet is the one-page SAP Career Summary.
I found this concept brilliant. It is essentially a cheat sheet.
Exactly.
You create a single document that lists your original violation date, your SAP's name and phone number, the specific date you became eligible to return to duty, your current clearinghouse status, and crucially, the exact contact information for the last employer who is currently holding your official remaining testing plan.
Right. By sliding that single page across the desk, you're telling the safety manager, here is exactly where I am in my regulatory timeline, and here's exactly who your compliance team needs to call to get the official paperwork.
So simple.
You provide that summary, your return-to-duty completion certificate, and your personal log of completed tests. That's it.
The source material gives us a tale of 2 drivers to illustrate how this preparation just completely changes the dynamic in the real world. Let's look at Trevor and Anthony.
Trevor.
Yeah, Trevor represents the extreme oversharer. He sits down in the safety manager's office, and the recruiter asks a standard compliance question about whether he completed the return-to-duty process. And Trevor completely unravels.
He just unloads everything.
He spends 20 minutes trauma dumping. He talks about his marital problems, his bitter disagreements with his old dispatcher, the intimate details of his substance abuse counseling, and how angry he still is about being selected for the original random test.
Trevor is treating a basic business compliance check like a therapy session.
Yeah.
I mean, drivers should absolutely be truthful, but oversharing, especially when it centers on lingering anger or defensiveness or, blaming others.
It sends a message.
It sends a very specific signal to the employer. It tells the safety manager that Trevor has not emotionally or professionally moved past the event. He is bringing a massive amount of unresolved baggage into their fleet.
And on the complete opposite end of the behavioral spectrum, you have Kevin.
Right, Kevin.
Kevin is so terrified that the company will reject him because of his past that he flat out lies on the employment application. He checks no on the violation history and tries to completely bury the event.
Which is the most self-destructive strategy possible because the FMCSA clearinghouse was built precisely to catch Kevin.
Exactly.
The new carrier runs their mandatory pre-employment query, and they immediately discover Kevin's hidden history. Now, the safety manager is dealing with 2 massive problems.
The violation and the lie.
Right. The original drug or alcohol violation, which, honestly, they actually might have been willing to work through. And Kevin's blatant dishonesty, which permanently destroys his credibility as a safe, reliable professional.
So looking at Trevor's emotional dumping and Kevin's dishonesty, it seems like the most effective approach is somewhere right in the middle. Like treating it almost as a straightforward business transaction. You state the facts, hand over the organized paperwork, and you stop talking.
Yes.
Does the guide offer a specific way to phrase that during the interview?
It does. It provides a perfectly calibrated script for exactly this moment. A driver like Anthony, who's prepared and gets the job, says something like, I had a DOT violation in 2025. I took ownership, completed the SAP process, and passed my return to duty test. My clearinghouse currently shows not prohibited. I still have an active follow-up obligation, and my previous employer, XYZ Logistics, has the official plan your safety department will need. I've kept all my records and will cooperate fully with whatever information you need.
Wow. He just acknowledges the current status, offers the roadmap, and shuts up.
Right. The employer still has to do the legal legwork of transferring the plan and verifying everything in the database. But Anthony demonstrated that he is responsible, proactive, and incredibly easy to work with.
He made their job easier.
He took a situation that usually causes hiring managers a massive headache and just handed them a streamlined solution.
So, what does this all mean for the driver listening in their cab right now? We've explored the mechanics of what to collect, the regulatory reasons of what to avoid, how to maintain the digital hygiene, and how to actually execute the interview.
We covered a lot of ground.
We did. And the core takeaway from this entire deep dive is that a DOT drug or alcohol violation is undoubtedly a difficult roadblock. But it doesn't have to be a dead end. By documenting, organizing, and protecting your SAP history, you are taking a massive administrative red flag and you're transforming it into a showcase of your reliability and professionalism.
Absolutely. You are proving to that motor carrier that you can handle complex, long-term regulatory requirements without needing someone to hold your hand or, clean up your messes. The trucking industry deeply values a driver who takes meticulous, organized ownership of their own career.
But I want to leave everyone listening with something to chew on that goes beyond just surviving a past violation.
Okay, I love this part. Think about the framework we just discussed, right? The hyper-organization, the clear naming conventions, the one-page summaries, the curated interview packets.
Right.
We know that radical organization can literally save a career after a major DOT violation. But imagine taking this exact same career file mindset and applying it to the positive aspects of your career.
That is such a fascinating pivot. You mean like building a glove box for the good stuff?
Exactly. Apply this to your million-mile safety awards, your specialized hazmat or tanker certifications, years of perfectly clean Level 1 roadside inspections.
Letters of recommendation from past safety directors.
Yes. If you document, curate, and present your achievements with the same intense professional clarity that this guide demands for a violation, you aren't just making yourself easier to hire.
You're in a league of your own.
You are positioning yourself as arguably the most elite, highly sought-after, top 1% driver on the road today.
Because at the end of the day, when that safety manager looks across the desk and asks about your history, you are never going to draw blank again. You aren't going to stammer, and you aren't going to guess. You're just going to hand them the map.